morning, everybody. Remember the rule of the shir that if I'm not clear, please ask. Okay? And there are two dimensions of learning, as you'll hear me say week after week. Dimension number one is, of course, the knowledge that we're learning. But far more important than that is we believe that the Torah is God's wisdom. It's infinite wisdom. God took his infinite being, he condensed it into book form. When a group of people get together on a Monday morning, spending a half an hour learning Torah, what are we really learning? We're learning the infinite wisdom of God condensed into book form. So God made the Torah so tangible, so palatable that even a child of 5 years of age can read it. What's he reading? What's he becoming one with? What's becoming interwoven in his mind? The oneness of God. There is no better way of connecting to Hashem than by learning Torah. Because by all other mitzvahs envelop you. God is, so to speak, hugging you. But by learning Torah, the Torah is being digested in your brain and it's enveloping you. So the half an hour can push away pandemics, it can make sickness go away, can accomplish all sorts of things according to the Torah's teachings. Okay. Now we are learning this, of course, in memory of Mark, Wayne, and my father-in-law. And we are in Mishna 8, I'm sorry. Okay, everybody open your books over there. And it goes as follows. Now we're going to learn, after Yeshua ben Parach Nitar Bailey. So let's go through the flow again. First, to start, we learned about the 3 pillars that keep the world up. Then Antigonus Ish Soicha spoke about one's own personal service. And what was one's own personal service? You've got to have fear and you've got to have love. Love and fear. Don't serve God for reward, but have a much deeper relationship. That even though when you start off, you want to reward a kid for learning well and you want to discipline a kid if he's messing around, but eventually we have to grow out of that. We have to have a relationship with God that transcends that. Then we spoke about how the ambience in the home, both if you live in a far out area or even if you live in Yerushalayim, the ambience of the home. That's what we learned about then. Then we spoke about a mentor and a friend, a little bit removed from us. And then in the last Mishnah now in this Mishnah, we're going to speak about how we deal with the community at large. And this Mishnah appears to be dealing or to be addressing a judge. So let's go straight into it. Yehuda ben Taba and Shimon ben Shotach. Now Yehuda ben Taba and Shimon ben Shotach, this is not a history class, but they lived through the most turbulent time of Jewish history. The king at the time was a very wicked king. He wanted to kill the sages. A lot of them had to run away to Egypt. If I'm not mistaken, Yeshua ben Parachia ran away to Egypt, but that's for another shiur when we learn history. But Yehuda ben Taba and Shimon ben Shotach, they became the leaders after Yeshua ben Parachia and Nitar Bailey. They become the 2 leaders. And Yehuda ben Tamai says as follows. He's got advice, you see. He's got advice for judges. But I think it applies to us all. And he says like this. Al ta'as atzmacha ka'ercha yadayonim. Do not make yourself as a lawyer when you're sitting as a judge. Right? That's point number 1. Do not make yourself as a lawyer when you're sitting as a judge. When the litigants are standing before you, they should both be like wicked people. And when they leave you, they should both be as guiltless. So let's just digest that because a lot was said there. So number 1, what was he saying? When you're a judge, don't be like a lawyer. Now, a judge's job is not to be a lawyer. What is a lawyer's job? A lawyer trains somebody what to say. Okay, a lawyer trains his client how to articulate his argument. That's not a judge's job. If a judge is sitting there, he has to look at both of these people in front of him as equal. He has to listen to the case. He cannot have the case tried before he even hears it. And even if the one is very powerful and very rich and very successful, and the judge thinks he's right, it's not his job to go train him what to say. That is not his job. He has to keep it neutral. The only time a judge can help, by the way, if he sees a young person in front of him, or anybody for that matter, is overwhelmed and can't even open his mouth, so therefore he's allowed to prompt him along the way. But he certainly can't plant seeds in his mind what to say in order to make him victorious. And what is it doing? It's perverting justice. Now I will say as follows. Every single day when we do the Amidah, we say, God, please restore the judges of old. So when we daven the Amidah, we ask God for health, and we ask God for wealth and intelligence. And if God forbid we sin, we ask God to forgive us. We ask God for a whole bunch of things in that very special experience of prayer called the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei. But one of the things we ask for is that judges should be restored like they were originally when they weren't corrupt. What does that mean? Because if somebody has been messed over by the justice system, if somebody's been messed over by the justice system, that person will never trust the justice system again. And the importance of a judge to keep things balanced and to keep things proper is of paramount importance, because the person standing in front, his children will never ever respect the law. So when you're a judge, be a judge, and it's not your job there to be a lawyer. I want to learn on a slightly deeper level now, and that is as follows. Maybe what we can apply to our daily life from this is as follows. Each and every one of us has a job. We all have a role, and all our roles are important. And if by divine providence I am the baker, right, or by divine providence I'm a digger for jewelry, for precious metals, I mustn't change. If I'm the baker, I must be the baker. It's very important to bake bread. I've got to stick to it. I can't go interfering in every single category of work. And often a time in an organization or in a shul or in a committee, you have people changing their roles. What the Torah is telling you over here is stick to your role. When the accountant is doing the salesman's job and the salesman is interfering in accountancy, your business is going one way. So I think just generally in life, it says just pick your role. You have to do what you have to do. But there's so many of us, by the way, we become experts in every field. Have you noticed? We're the expert in every field. And we walk in, we're giving advice here and advice there. A beautiful thing I once heard from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, somebody asked the Rebbe, why didn't you tell me? The Rebbe said, I learned from my father-in-law, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, that you don't give advice unless you are asked. But you have some of us, we're always interfering. We're giving advice. We walk into a restaurant, we call the owner over, we're giving advice what this should be, what that should be. And the Torah says that's not the way to be. Be humble enough to think, be humble enough to know that you've got your own journey in life. If you're called upon to help or give advice, well, then you can give advice, but don't interfere. Don't change roles. Now, you look at the job between a baker and a miner, somebody who mines for diamonds, pearls, etc. So you would think as follows. You would think, gee, baking, which is more important over there? Well, baking, look at it like this. Baking bread feeds people. So even if I'm a miner, if I'm digging, maybe I should give that up and become the baker to feed people. No. There's a spiritual dimension to mining. And what is that? You're mining for the most beautiful things that the earth has to offer. And I would like to say that every single human being is like the earth. Inside of us, we've got the most precious things, precious qualities, precious characteristics, all sorts of qualities. And it takes a very clever person to mine us, a very special teacher, a mentor, a friend to mine us, to bring out the special qualities that everybody has. And I think the first thing we all have to take from this mission over here is, if you're a judge, be a judge. It's not for you to be a lawyer at that particular time. Good, that's number one. I think another explanation of the first part of the Mishnah is as follows. That if you're a judge, don't be a lawyer, which means to say as follows. Who really judges us? We'll see in chapter 2, we're going to learn like this. In chapter 2, we're going to learn, be very careful about how you judge other people, because you might be bringing judgment upon yourself. In fact, it says in the Torah, listen to what it says. It says that you judged with your knowledge and without your knowledge. Now, what does that mean? You judged with your knowledge and without your knowledge. So commentary explains that who really judges a person in the world to come, or in Rosh Hashanah, or Mashiach comes, who really judges? So let's say the heavenly court, angels. Angels can't really judge us because we are God's children, and we have a diplomatic immunity, a spiritual diplomatic immunity. So who really judges us? We judge ourselves. Hear this. What does it mean we judge ourselves? From time to time, the Baal Shem Tov explained it this way. From time to time, we think about somebody who did good or did bad. We think, oh, if that person did that, this and the other, they deserve that. With our knowledge, we brought judgment on the person. We've said that if we were trying the case, the person would be guilty of such and such. Without our knowledge, we've actually brought that judgment upon ourselves. And therefore, be very careful the way you judge other people. But one thing is for sure, as the Mishna is pointing out here, don't become a lawyer and defend yourself when it's wrong. You've made a mistake. You've made a mistake in life. Don't start justifying it with all sorts of justifications. And I think that one of the biggest problems that one of the biggest problems that people face, by the way, is that we're always justifying our bad behavior. We justify. And that's what the Mishna is telling you not to do. Don't be a lawyer. You've made a mistake. Acknowledge you've made a mistake and fix it up. Life is not about what happened yesterday. Life is not about what happened the day before, the week before, the month before. What's important is how I get my life right today. And I'm not sure if I pointed out to you, I might have, but before you go to bed at night, please, if I repeat things, somebody just stop me. Before you go to bed at night, there's a prayer that you say. I think it's the second most important prayer you say. The prayer goes as follows: Master of the universe. Before you say Shema at night, you say the following prayer: Master of the universe, I hereby forgive all those who have sinned against me, physically, financially, intentionally, unintentionally, in this lifetime, in another lifetime. And by the way, God, if I've sinned, forgive me too. Now, why is that prayer so important? Because most of us wake up in the morning, whatever time we get up, our mind is full of what somebody did to me yesterday, what the other person did to me the week before, the month before, the year before, what my parents did to me. We walk around giving free rent in our brain to people who've hurt us justifiably or unjustifiably. Who's the one really suffering? We suffering. So the Torah says, get it out of your mind. Forgive anybody who might have mucked you up. And if you're wallowing in guilt because you behaved badly or immaturely at some point in your life, forgive yourself as well. But from now on, get your life right from today. And that's the most important thing. And that's what it is. Don't sit there justifying. You can justify from here till forever, but it's not going to allow you to be the person you could become. And tragically, by the way, some of us, we get to our 20s, 30s, 40s, and we say, oh, that's my life. That's me. It doesn't have to be. At any stage, you can change your life. But look, this is how I've been for the last 30 years. Well, that should give you the more wherewithal to be able to change. So we mustn't accept our lives because that's the way we've been behaving until now. No, we've got to be in a way young and bolsterous. We've got to say, no, if I'm alive today, God wants me to be alive. There's something that I have to do, and I'm going to change myself and change the world around. And how we should do it, by the way, whether you write it down or whether you make a mental note of it, what do I want to fix up? Now, we've just started a new era this month. What is it? It's called holidays. It's December. And cautiously, I say that what we should actually be doing, because holidays, whether we take more of a break or we don't take more of a break, we do go into a bit of a different space. Maybe we should turn our holidays into holy days, where we should really think what areas we want to better, forgiving our past, getting rid of our past, or taking upon ourselves something that we want to achieve. That's what it means. But don't allow ourselves this December to justify all the things we didn't do, all the things we did wrong. That's what it says over here. Don't become a lawyer to defend yourself. Accept it and move on. Good. Next part of the Mishnah, if I'm not clear, please ask, by the way. The next part of the Mishnah. Sorry? Okay. The next part of the Mishnah says as follows. Okay, Mr. Judge, you had to sit there and you weren't allowed to be a lawyer when you were sitting as a judge. Now, when both of the litigants are standing before you, they should both be like wicked. It doesn't mean wicked, but they should both be like wicked. So the simple explanation for this is as follows. That sometimes when you have a real powerful individual standing in front of you, and he's taking on, or the person taking him on is a young little kid, you immediately want to find favor, or you immediately favor the old, well-respected, charity-giving person. Says the Torah, that's not allowed. When both people are standing in front of you, no matter how rich and powerful and famous the one person is, both of them in your eyes has to be equal. And you have to have the sensibility, the fear of God to be able to do that. Because your job is to judge that case, not to judge their past, but to judge that case. And therefore, you've got to look at them both as equal. They both could have mucked it up over here. There's another explanation, by the way. It's a nuance over here. And that is, and look at them both as wicked. Why look at them both as wicked? Probably one is right and one is wrong. And commentary explains beautifully. Commentary says, why do you look at them both as wicked? Because Jewish law is hinting to something. Of course, from time to time, cases have to come to court. But don't become a litigant. Try your hardest to compromise. The Torah doesn't want to see two people fighting. And by and large, you'll see the people who fight like to fight. They're always litigants. They're always going to court. The Torah doesn't want that. The Torah says, just go settle it. Go settle it peacefully. Because most times, by the way, both people think they're right. Both people think they're right. Walk into the argument, I'm right, he's right, we're both right, they're fighting. I'm right, you're wrong, but we both feel like that. The Torah says, just try settle it outside. But I'm right. Maybe, hear the words, maybe in a previous lifetime, you took money from that person unjustifiably, and the person, without realizing it, is trying to get it back from you. That's number one. Number two, the amount of bad energy that's spent on a court case. Because what happens is people dig in their heels and they'll go much further than they thought they would ever go just to prove a point becomes absolutely absurd. And the Torah says just try settle it outside court. If you're already at court, there's a bit of negative behind you. Let me clarify. Let me tell you two stories. There's once a person in our city in Johannesburg who somebody did something very bad to. In fact, they wrote a scathing article about the person. And the person took it very personally and went and sued that person. True story. Spent 2 years suing the person. And eventually the person had to withdraw and apologize. But in the midst of it, in the fight of it, the person took their eye off their own business, and their business suffered very badly for it. And if they would have just put it behind them, I'm not saying I would or wouldn't have, okay, but if they would have, they wouldn't have taken their eye off the business. And sometimes we get so caught up in the fight. It says anybody who fights with a filthy person, you yourself will become filthy. Sometimes you don't want to become filthy. But I'm right. Put it behind you. A previous lifetime. Call it verribbel guilt. But I don't want to get too caught up in wasting my time on negative energy. Let me clarify a little bit about reincarnation. I can't remember which sage it was, but one of the sages wanted to learn more about reincarnation, which is fundamental to our religion. So he asked Elijah the prophet. We know Elijah the prophet comes up and down physically from the spiritual world. He's not the only one, by the way. So does many other people do that. But he's probably the most well-known. So the story is told that the tzaddik, I think it was the Mizritcha Maggid actually, asked him to teach him more about reincarnation. So he said, okay, come with me. He says, come, let's go into the forest. Remember in Lithuania, in Russia, Ukraine, there were a lot of forests there. He said, come to the forest. He said, just stand here. And in the distance was a big river. Anyways, a big ruffian comes, and this ruffian has a big wad of money in a wallet in his back pocket. He sits down and he has lunch. Remember, there was no transport like there is today. He has lunch. He gets up, and lo and behold, he's overeaten. He's probably had a bit of wine with his food. He gets up, and off he goes, and he drops his wallet. A short while later, another guy comes to this river where there's no inhabitants, and he finds the wallet. He looks at the wallet. There's absolutely no sign of whose it is. He looks around. He calls. He screams, anybody lost the wallet? No answer. Jewish law, you're allowed to keep the wallet, and off he goes. So this guy's had a lucky day. He's found the wallet. A short while later, another meek, weak guy comes, and his luck, his muzzle, he sits down exactly in the place where the first guy lost the wallet, and the second guy found the wallet, and he sits down there, and he takes out his lunch. He's starving, hungry, he eats his lunch, gets a bit of water from the river, and he's getting a bit of energy to move on. Lo and behold, the first guy who lost the wallet comes running over. He says, you're sitting in exactly the place where I lost my wallet. Where's my wallet? I don't know what you're talking about. Where's my wallet? You stole my wallet. You stole my wallet. And he smashes him up. Elijah the prophet says to the Mizritcha Maggid, well, that's a story of reincarnation. And he went on to explain. In a previous lifetime, the guy who lost the wallet, the ruffian who lost the wallet, in this lifetime, took money unjustifiably from the person who came and found the wallet in this lifetime. Therefore, nothing stays unfixed. Their souls had to come down to this world, and the one who took the money unjustifiably had to pay it back to the one who deserved it. And that's why the second guy found the wallet, and he moved on, and to this day he has the wallet. He said, who was the third guy? The third guy was the judge. The third guy was the rabbi. And when the rabbi heard the case, he was acting as a judge, and he didn't act patiently. He just heard the case, and he said, and he just didn't want to get too involved. Therefore, the guy who helped in the previous lifetime had to punish him for what he did wrongly in this lifetime. Now, why I say that is sometimes in life there are things that happen to us around us that we don't understand. Somebody takes money from us unjustifiably. Somebody does this. The quickest and best way, not every time, but don't spend negative energy trying to chase it. Somebody says something horrible about you. Somebody does something wrong, whatever it might be. Too many of us get so caught up in the fight, in whatever, we justify ourselves, and we lose so much more than we could have done. So that's what this mission is telling you about over here. That's what this mission is telling you. If you don't be a litigant too much. It could have been in a previous lifetime. Don't waste too much energy after these things. Of course, there are times you have to fight. But think it through very carefully if you have to. Now, there's another thing. Look, Shivtorim, when they leave you, so now the two guys have stood in front of you. One, both thought they were right. They had a fight, but now they've accepted your judgment. Even though one is right and one is wrong, you've got to look at them both as innocent because they've accepted upon themselves your judgment. Because something happens when a fight takes place. You often see it, by the way. A fight takes place, it takes place on a little thing. And then both people think they're right and they justify themselves as right and they get stuck in. And then they can't get out of it. And the lawyers are pushing them to go further. And before they know it, they're so convinced they have the best case in the world and they should have just settled this thing out of court. But nonetheless, people do make mistakes, and at least they are coming to a judge. And therefore, when they leave you, look at them both as guiltless. That's what we learn from this. But I really think the down-to-earth lessons from this Mishna for us, the tools to help us to apply to our lives, because I don't think any of us are judges of here, is number one, don't change your goal. Don't change your role. If this is why I roll, doesn't mean I can't look at my role in the future. But if this is what my responsibility is today, let me stick to that. That's number one. Number two, don't be too much of a litigant. Try to get the negative energy behind. There's a beautiful line in the Gemara. Ein echad nogeya parnasa shel chaveira. Nobody can take away from what God wants you to have. Hear that? Nobody can take away from what God wants you to have. People can divert it. People can block you. People can slow you down. But eventually, what's destined for you, you will get. And of course, the person we really learn the most from is Joseph. Joseph lost his mother young. His brother sold him into slavery. He was accused of rape for 12 years. But eventually, he becomes the prime minister of the land of Egypt. Okay? And that's what we take from that Mishnah. Let's go to the next one. Any questions? Okay, good. Now, this is also the next Mishnah. I mean, the Mishnahs now, each one's going to get nicer than the next. The next Mishnah is a continuation of the last one. So it's Yehuda ben Taba and his colleague was Shimon ben Shotach. Shimon ben Shotach's brother-in-law was a very evil man. If you think people are irreligious now, there's always been fights between frum and non-frum, and people did very wicked things. He had a very wicked brother-in-law, this man. Anyways, but that's for another time. Shimon ben Shotach Omer. He said like this. Have you marbe lechake sa'edin? He says, if you're sitting as a judge, right, you've got to interrogate your witnesses extensively. In other words, over here, not just in the previous Mishnah, he addressed these words. He said, if you're a judge, don't be a lawyer. He says, no. If you are a judge, your job is to interrogate the witnesses. Why? Because you're dealing with somebody's life. Somebody's brought a case before you. Somebody's brought a case before you, whether it be a big case, whether it be a small case. If a person sees injustice, as I said at the beginning of this year, if a person sees injustice in life, the person doesn't respect the system for years to come. Not him and not his children, not his grandchildren. Somebody feels that a school didn't behave well to them. They suffer for years to come. Not justifying what they do, just what the fact is. So when a judge is sitting there, the judge has to interrogate, even though he's sure of the case, he has to interrogate. What does it mean, interrogate? He wants to try to get the witnesses to speak as much as possible. Why does he want to get the witnesses to speak as much as possible? Because the more you speak, you lie. And that's why the Torah says that clever people don't speak a lot. But you want to interrogate them backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And keep interrogating them, because eventually, if they are lying, they'll get them to lie.
At 9:30, this finishes too.
Beg your pardon? I missed that, I'm sorry. Okay. Then, the next thing he says, right, and also be very careful with your words. Because the judge is speaking, the judge can hint things without realizing. If the judge is not careful with what he says, the witnesses or even the litigants can hear things and from there learn how to lie. Because the judge can hint the case without realizing it. If the judge is not a man of absolute integrity and high intelligence and really experienced, he can be prompting the witnesses or the litigants to say exactly what they have to say. And therefore, he says, by the way, be very careful with your words, because maybe from them people learn to lie. But I want to extend it for us having this share today, and that is as follows. A person has to be very careful with your words. Now, I certainly have been guilty of this over the years. But you learn as you get older. What does that mean? Sometimes we say things sarcastically, or sometimes we say things we don't even really mean to. Sometimes we say things in jest, and somebody has picked up the wrong meaning whatsoever. And it sounds very clever and fun when it happened, but the truth of the matter is lives can be hurt, and people can be really mucked over from it. So what's the Mishna saying over here for us? Because you might say, well, we're not judges. No. Every single day we're a judge. People listen to us. Our kids listen to us. And be very, very careful with your words, because people can learn to lie. And I don't know if I mentioned on the share over here, but let's make up a story. I once saw it on the internet that there was this husband and wife, and they had this kid, and they sent the kid to Michael House or to Hilton in Durban, the two best schools in the country, and they pay 20,000 Rand a month for the kids to go to school. Anyways, it's now December time. The kids have been taught the best value system that you can imagine. Now comes December time, and they're so happy. The kids out of boarding school, and they're going away. The kids now 12 years of age. They're going on holiday. Where do they go? They go to Plettenberg Bay. Plettenberg Bay is a little place called Monkey Farm. And the kid's quite short, and they go to Monkey Farm, and it says for Monkey Farm, adults 300 Rand, children under 12, 100 Rand. So the father says to the kid, you've just turned 12. You're 12 in 2 weeks. You're a short kid. Just say that you're under 12. At that moment, the parents have thrown away an entire year of education at Michael House or at Hilton. Thrown away completely. And you've got to be so careful with what you say when you're driving, because your kids are hearing that. And without realizing it, through your Messiah Lefi Tumah, through your natural behavior where you say things, we can be affecting our kids. We can teach our kids to lie without even realizing it. So there's so many connotations of this Mishnah, by the way. Be very careful with your words, not just giving instructions, but the way we talk, the way we do, the example we set can teach our kids to become the worst sort of creatures. And it all starts from something small, by the way. All starts from something small. So I think we'll stop. We've got 2 more minutes. I'll go to the next Mishnah. Okay. Now, I will start, but we're going to repeat it again. The two people who took over after them, after Shimon Shatach and Yehuda ben Tamai, was none other than Shmaya ve'Avtalion. Do not confuse them with Hillel and Shammai. These were two sages. They actually were, I think their parents or grandparents were converted to Judaism. By the way, a lot of our sages, parents or grandparents were converted to Judaism. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Akiva, all came from non-Jewish grandparents or parents. So Shmaya ve'Avtalion, they received the tradition from the two rabbis that came before them. And they said like this. We'll just stop after this. Shmaya said like this. He said like this: love work and hate power, right? And do not fraternize with those in power. I just want to leave off with one thing. What does it mean, love work? If a person is not working, you're going to get up to mischief. It is so important to occupy your mind. Love work. There is nothing worse than laziness. There's nothing worse than lying on the bed. You know what happens? If your mind is not scheming and active, I'll put it to you this way. When they threw Joseph into the prison, I'll conclude with this. When they threw Joseph in the prison, when his brothers threw Joseph into the well, the Torah says they took Joseph and they threw him into the bor. They threw him into the well. The Torah says, Bahaborek, the pit was empty, the well was empty, Ein Bor Mayim, there was no water. Rashi, the commentary Paris Excellence on Chumash, questions it. Why does it say the well which they threw him into, it was empty, there was no water? Obviously, if it's empty, there's no water. So Rashi says as follows. What it means to say, there's a nuance there. The well should have had water. It was empty. When a well is empty, it doesn't stay just empty. It stays empty of water, but something else comes in there. What comes in there? Snakes and scorpions. Now, extend that thought. We have a bor, we have a well, it's called our brain. The brain should be full of learning and full of positive thinking, full of scheming and full of all sorts of good things, of how to work and how to achieve. But if your well is empty, if there's no water, water's gushing thoughts, excitement, scheming, activity, if there's no water there, you know what's going to be there? Snakes and scorpions. Snakes and scorpions are going to be full of negative, depressive, horrible thoughts. And that's a challenge to everybody, by the way. You want to change your life? You want to change life? I'll conclude with this. Every single day, Jews make a blessing. One of the blessings, we make a whole bunch of blessings. We thank God for things. One of the blessings we make is on our shoes. Why on our shoes? Because it's the direction of my shoes today that determine the rest of my life. And even until today, I've been thinking negative things. It's free choice. I can control my thoughts. I can control my speech, and I can control my action. So let's have a week full of loving work. And please, God, through that, let's achieve beyond expectation. And I will see you all next week.
Rabbi,
Thank you.
can we
Thank
just
you,
say
Rabbi.
that this was in memory of Masijahu Mordechai ben Yosef and Rabbi Abraham?
Sure. So I'll actually make a slide with it. We'll always start off with that slide.
Thank you. It was very practical.
Good. We'll be in touch. Cheers.